Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jennifer Topple, the board chair of the International Dyslexia Association, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this week's Motivational Monday educational webinar. Today's topic is bringing online structured literacy to life with research-based engaging activities. This webinar will help you dive into the how-tos of online literacy instruction and increase interaction and engagement while also maintaining the research-based methodology you are accustomed to delivering your students. Just a heads up, our next two webinars will be a two-part series on resilience in challenging times. Part one will be on June 29th, and it's entitled, How Can We as Parents and Teachers Develop the Resilience We Need to Help Our Children? Part two will be on August 10th, and it's entitled, Nurturing Hope and Resilience in Our Children. Please continue to check IDA's website and eBlast for more information on descriptions and dates for these webinars. As usual, we will do our prize drawings following the webinar tomorrow, and winners will be notified via email. Once the winners are confirmed, they will be announced in our next eBlast. Finally, thank you to those of you who have donated to IDA's COVID-19 Relief Fund. We are still accepting donations through the donate link on the YouTube description or by clicking the donate button on our Facebook page. This fund is providing computers, laptops, and tablets, software, tutoring assistance stipends, and advocate service stipends to those in need. At this point, we have awarded over $20,000 worth of scholarships, and the applications keep coming in, so please continue to give. Donations start at $1 or more, so please come and support. I'd now like to introduce our presenters for today. Marianne Nice is a speech-language pathologist and reading specialist with over 20 years of experience in K-12 education. Marianne specializes in the diagnosis and treatment of dyslexia and related literacy disorders. She regularly provides professional development and consultation to school systems, both locally and nationally. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Marianne is providing over 20 hours per week of online structured literacy instruction to students diagnosed with dyslexia. She consults with school districts as well about delivering powerful synchronous online instruction. Marianne is formerly a member of adjunct faculty at the University of New Hampshire Speech-Language Pathology program, where she teaches a course in language and literacy disorders. She is an 8-time speaker at the American Speech-Language Hearing Association convention and recently spoke at the 2019 International Dyslexia Association's annual conference. Marianne lives in southern New Hampshire with her husband, Keith, seated next to her, and their 2 children, ages 16 and 13. Now on to Keith. Keith has over 20 years of experience in literacy. He obtained his master's degree in special education at the University of New Hampshire. He specializes in language-based literacy disorders and works primarily with elementary school-age students. Throughout his career, Keith has gained a wealth of training and experience implementing research-based reading programs, interventions, and assessments. He is also a national trainer for the Lively Letters reading program. Keith is currently working in a local school system as the reading specialist/interventionist for the primary grades, as well as working with his wife as a reading consultant for Reality Ed. All right, take it away.
Unmute. Unmute. Thank you so much for having us. We are thrilled to be here. I'm just going to share my screen. And we are going to jump right in. We have a lot of ground to cover in a short amount of time. So we saw the questions ahead of time. They were fantastic. So we're going to try to cover as much as we can in this short amount of time. There'll be some times when I go a little quickly, but folks will be able to watch the recording of this. So if there's anything you missed, you can always catch up by watching a recording of this. All right, so as Jennifer mentioned, during COVID-19, normally I'm working in school systems and consulting to school systems, and Keith's working in schools with children, but during COVID-19, of course, everything changed. So what I've been doing during this time is I was hired by one of the districts I work with to work with their severely dyslexic students and provide structured online instruction for them since the middle of March. And Keith, you want to talk? So most of my sessions are 45 minutes long, and it's either 1-to-1 or a group of 2. So more of your tier 3 students.
In my groups are typically half an hour to 45 minutes, maybe an hour, with groups of anywhere from 2 to 5. And usually they're kids that really struggle in the area of reading.
So but you have more tier 2 students.
Yeah,
or
probably
what would
more
be considered tier 2 students.
Yeah.
All right, so our focus for today, the first 2 bullets, we're just going to really kind of cover that quickly, get us on the same page. But the rest of the time we want to spend talking about ideas, activities, different apps you can use. And hopefully you'll get a lot of really practical ideas that you can use in your lessons immediately. We just said as a disclaimer, please just double check. We'll mention some apps, we'll mention some Google extensions, but make sure you check with your district. As far as a disclosure, Jennifer mentioned that we do trainings for lively letters occasionally, so we're contracted to do that, but we don't make any, we don't make any sales off of the app that's purchased if you purchase the app. So we'll show you the app, but that's not something that we have financial ties to. All of the other apps we're showing, we have no financial ties to any of those. So these are just good little treasures we found. We do have some freebies we'd love to share with folks. One's a list of all the strategies and apps by lesson component, which you'll kind of see that that's how the webinar is laid out. I also I used a lesson planner when I started to kind of help me plan my remote instruction with students. I have that to share with folks. And then if you didn't get the PowerPoint handouts, we'll have that available as well. But we have a webinar link and we'll tell you about that at the end. All right, so in structured literacy, we're really covering quite a span here. We're covering, we always refer back to this model of Scarborough's rope, which is a great depiction of the simple view of reading, that students really need to have word recognition abilities to be able to access the text accurately, fluently, and then linguistic and cognitive abilities to be able to understand what they read. But when it comes to structured literacy, we're talking about instruction in all of those areas. So the term structured literacy, and IDA, the website has a great definition of structured literacy, but it really refers to 2 elements, one being the content, the other being the principles of instruction. You may also see structured literacy described using different language like MSLE, multisensory structured language education, or structured language and literacy. But they're both referring to sort of the same methodology of instruction. So as far as content, what you're seeing here with structured literacy is an approach that would reach both ends of that rope that you saw. So starting with some of those lower order word recognition skills, phonological awareness, phonics, spelling, conventions of print, and then things on the upper part of the rope, syntax, semantics, good comprehension strategies. So really diving into both areas, and that's what we're going to try to do today, show you activities for both areas, both for younger students and older students as well. So we're hoping that everybody will have a broad reach today. As far as principles of instruction, we know that structured literacy should be explicit, systematic, and cumulative. So the students, you're slowly spiraling forward with concepts. Hands-on, this is the hard part when it comes to remote learning, and diagnostic and responsive, meaning that we're not delivering a lesson, page 1, lesson 1, page 2, lesson 2, page 3, lesson 3, that we're really pacing the program based on the student's responses and where the student is at. What do we need to do to bring them to the next level? So we'll dive right in. So today we're going to give you ideas in all of these lesson components, and we're really going to start right here with phonological awareness, give you a few ideas for that, and then move all the way up to syntax, vocabulary, comprehension. So we've learned
The hard way.
We've learned the hard way. This is a new skill set for so many of us. And by the way, I wanted to mention, I don't think somebody asked, what is the most challenging piece? The most challenging piece, I think, has been trying to replicate what's hands-on onto virtual. For me, that's been the hardest. I've had to really think outside the box. So I'm excited to share these things with you. No one is ever going to convince me that this virtual learning, especially with our struggling students, is going to replace what we do one-to-one with students.
Although I will add, I've learned some things
We've learned some
through
things.
this crazy experience. I've learned some things that I'm actually going to use that I didn't use before with some of these kids.
Actually, me
and
too.
It does
I would say
involve a
that.
screen, and you'll probably see a couple of those little tricks coming up in a minute.
So things that we've learned that we think make a big difference: headset with a mic or earbuds, if the student has it available. If they don't have it available, that it's not a must-have. I've also found that if a student can use a mouse versus a trackpad, that will be helpful for the student in terms of engagement. So those are things we've noticed make a big difference. I'm just wrapping up the work that I was doing since March with my students. I'll start with a new group of students in July from a different school district, but this is something I'm going to do. So these little things can make a big difference. Avoid awkward conversations by kind of sharing your meeting norms before you even start your work. So this is what I plan to do with all my middle school students this summer. These are things we've run across: students eating their breakfast while they're working with us, shoveling cereal into their mouths, or siblings that want to sit there. And certainly I let siblings come here and there if they're reading a story to their sibling, but sometimes the siblings want to chime in with answers, or the parent wants to chime in with you. So some of these things are pieces we've run into. So probably a great idea, and we've learned the hard way, come up with some meeting norms before you get started. I also wanted to tell you about just some general apps that I have that I think are great to have on hand. If you see a little apple next to any of the apps that are described, that's letting you know that it's iOS or something you'd find on the Apple Store, the App Store. And then I'll show you other ideas for Android for folks that just use Android or both sometimes. So one of them is this electronic dice. It's a digital die that's fast, doesn't make any annoying noises. And so sometimes I'll roll the die. I'll show it to you here. You just press it and it will give you the number. I'm going to show you some dice games where I actually let the students roll their own die, and that's one way to try to make things a little more multisensory. I've also found this electronic scoreboard that you can kind of customize with the student's name if you're playing games or you're keeping score. So I found that works. Today, we're not going to get into, because there's been other webinars that have just been fantastic and gotten into what platforms to use, how to hook up an iPad. We're not going to show you that today. We want to show you the activities, so kind of going one step further. But if you're not sure how to do something, definitely, I mean, the first thing we've done is go to YouTube and try to figure it out. Other things that make a difference is to get that interactive piece in there, and there were a lot of questions about this. What about how do we get interactive letter tiles? This is tough. One thing you can do with PowerPoint or with Google Slides is to make your own tiles. And once you make one, it's fairly easy to make others. I'm going to take us in and out of slideshow mode just so that we can demonstrate a few things. But I'm going to show you a font that I think is probably the best font to use with students. But there's also, just so you can see, there's these very quick commands. Command plus C will copy something. Command, so those commands, just take a look at that, but that will cut your workload in half if you're making another set of letter tiles. So letter tiles, we've made lots of those. As far as finding a way to interact, if you're using Google, and you're using Google Slides, if you can share the slideshow with the students, they can interact as well. So you could be on live using that. But there's another Google extension that I like, and thank you, Anna Bassett, fantastic reading specialist that introduced me to this. Jamboard is a Google Chrome extension. I'm going to use it later on when we look at comprehension and vocabulary, but you can create tiles on this Jamboard, and students, even with a group, if you share the Jamboard with them, they can move things around and then have that ability to move tiles, move letter tiles. Other pieces that we have said makes a big difference. In my previous instruction, I would have with students live. Sometimes I'll use a checklist. I'll say, here's our overview for today. Here's our focus. And what I've done here is just on, a lot of this stuff I'll show you is on PowerPoint and Google Slides. And I believe, you know, anything that is like a slideshow app that you can use will do this type of work. But all I did for the student was just lay out the schedule for today. So 45 minutes feels like a long time. I let the students know, hey, here's what we're doing. First, second, third. And with some students, I go so far as to fill it in and show the student that we've completed the work. So I just click on the box, I hit fill in, and I check that off so they can see what they've accomplished. So that's gone a long way. Let's jump into teaching phonological awareness online and some apps that we've used. Just as a super fast review, we know phonological awareness develops over time. There's a continuum of learning that goes on. This is a meta-linguistic ability. It's an auditory task. As students are young, they start to learn that words are in a sentence, words have beats, words have rhyme. And eventually that more sophisticated form would be that they realize that words have individual phonemes. And this is the piece that makes a very significant contribution to phonics. So knowing that this is something that's auditory, just some really easy low-tech options in my slideshow. Let me end the show here. In my slideshow, I can, just gonna move, I can just go over to shapes and very quickly create a star. Put the star here, and now I can almost use that to keep track. Let's do 5 activities where you're telling me how many syllables are in a word. Let's do 5 where you're segmenting the sounds, but I can fill in each star for the student, and it's just something to kind of keep them going. Another tip that I use when I'm using manipulatives to teach phonological awareness, I will use, be consistent with the manipulatives I use, meaning that I don't take circles to represent phonemes on Tuesday and then on Wednesday have those same circles represent words. It's too confusing, right? So just pick the shapes you want to use. And this is what I typically do. Words are rectangles, syllables are squares, phonemes are circles. But things that you used to do, like say it and move it activities. So just taking, you know, a picture off of Google Images, putting it on your PowerPoint, and then you can move this. If you're using something like Jamboard or something like Google Slides, you'll be able to have the students manipulate these. If they can't, things that I've resorted to is having the students grab some Legos, having them grab, you know, pom-poms or whatever they have to kind of just have something to move or to push. If you have a second camera, I'm not that fancy. I don't have a second camera. My students don't have a second camera. They're usually just sort of moving their screen up and down so I can see what's in front of them. So I mentioned say it and move it activities. This is a resource that I have where I have the students, I'll move the chips down. Keith and I do a lot of this work. So show me the sounds in moose. And I still am able to do that here. I'll have maybe the student show me on their fingers, oos. So we'll do it together and I'll move it down so they can see it while they have their finger out. Other activities I've done here would be to say, okay, what's the mystery word? Elephant. What is it? You know, and have them say elephant. Hot dog. What's the word? What's the mystery word? Hot dog. Circus. Or do it by sounds. So what's the mystery word? Just using pictures. So still it's auditory, but they're using some pictures. I know a lot of folks are using Zoom. And Zoom does have some really nice features. One of them being that the student can engage with some annotation tools. Oftentimes I'll have them use the annotation tools and just kind of circle their answer. They can do this with an iPad or on a laptop. We know a lot of people don't have Zoom, so I won't get into it that much, but kind of picture that with some of these activities I'm showing you. this dice game, so I'll have a student that most kids seem to have at least one die in their house that they can find from an old game. If they don't, I still have my electronic die right here that I can use, and I have dice here as well. But I will have them roll the die, and if they roll a 3, they have to tell me which picture has 3 syllables. And so they keep rolling until they get them all. So caterpillar, hippopotamus, so that goes up to 5. If they roll a 6, they just have to roll again. There is a way to just to know that there is a way that you can, it's pretty easy to take like a PDF and set it as the background so that the picture doesn't move. When the students go to move something, sometimes the whole picture will come down with it, but you can do this in a way that avoids that by setting a PDF as a background. So I have found that to be pretty helpful if I'm using Google Slides and my students, I want to do something like this. Otherwise, I haven't had to set the backgrounds all that much. For older students, I know you may not be working perhaps a lot at the phoneme level or phonological awareness, but sometimes I'll do activities with syllables. So I might say, if this says preventing, can you make it say preventive? Can you make it say prevention? Which part of the word will change? So these are things that you could do for sure with some older students. I want to show you a couple of apps here. These are for Apple. I'm going to go super quick, but each slide sort of describes what activities they have for developing phonemic awareness. So a lot of them have sort of a sound symbol piece, which is more of a phonics, but some of them also just have find the first sound in this word. So let me put this on. So here they're just placing the sun when they find the initial match. Here they're sliding the pictures into the matching ones. So leaf, ladybug, they'd slide the student would take the ladybug and put it into the leaf. If you're a classroom teacher and you're watching this, or you're a parent watching this, these are great apps to recommend for students. This is called the Sound Beginnings app. Here they have apps where you say, you know, the student is, you're just moving, you tap on the picture, it'll tell you the sound, and then the student has to choose the right letter. Or the reverse, the student sees the letter, taps on the letter, hears the sound, and then they have to pull down the picture that starts with that sound. So it has a little bit of both. I liked that it had just some auditory only activities and then some where they were matching the sound and the symbol as well. So this one was move the bubble into the yellow spot that matches the initial sound. So you hit hat, and you've got to take the picture of either the horse or the pear and move it in to that circle. So pretty easy. Phonemic Awareness Bubbles app. I found a lot of use out of this, and these are free, by the way. So I would say almost all the apps we're showing today are free except for 2. They also had this short vowels app, which I really liked. You'll notice that they have this skill of reading here. I'll show you that later. But they also have a blending and segmenting section as well. So Reading Magic 1 is another great app. It's available with Apple. I wasn't able to find it on Android, but you're able to choose what kind of short vowel you want to work with. And then here, the student taps each square to hear the sounds, and then they should say the whole word and get the picture. Here, they get the picture and they have to segment it into each of its sounds. So it has both blending and segmenting activities. Again, if you're a classroom teacher, this is a great tool to share with parents. For older students, as far as phonemic awareness, this is available for Apple and Android, and I've got a lot of mileage on this. This is pretty old, I guess is what I would say, because it's been around for 10 plus years. But I have got
Look
some.
how she's dressed.
You know, it's a retro vibe. That's what that is. Yeah, it's a retro vibe.
All right.
Yeah, my mother had a dress that looked like that. So interesting. What you would say is the student on the iPad or the tablet would click this word and it might say MEB, and then you tap next word and it might say MIB, and the student has to take the color, a different color, and show that the sound in the middle changed. So they have that with just blocks here represented with colors. and they have all different levels, and then they also have it with actual letters as well. So there's a couple of different ways you can take a look at this. So if you're using Android, I would check these out. I was trying to find equivalents between what I showed with Apple for those Android users out there. These were two that I looked at. The hard part about the Android for us is that I can actually download them and use them with students to kind of give you that it's been tested, but they looked pretty good from what I could read about them. All right, we're going to jump into teaching online. So easy, low-tech options. Certainly, if you have physical materials, you can still hold those up. That's not a problem. I wanted to show you, I had mentioned a font that I like Century Gothic as a font. It has the nice A, this like early reader print A, the G that we would like, and 300 point. And I just wanted to share, I have to type that in. So if I go to my drop-down menu up here for this, when I go to pick a font size, it's not going to have 300 as an option. I have to kind of highlight that box and type it in. But I do a lot of warm-ups with just this, and then we'll show you how to take it to the next level. So a warm-up with just this is fine. And you know, G, the keyword, the sound. Sometimes I change it up. I just look for rapid automatic recognition of the sounds. I can make the A a different font. So those are pretty easy things, even reading these CVC words. But we're going to show you, our kids got a little bored with that. So we'll show you how we've been able to kick it up a notch. If the students are using Zoom, you can say a sound and have them circle it. Keith and I think, well, more so Keith has had students using lively letters, which is letters that have the visual or mnemonic cues kind of drawn onto the letter. He can hold that letter up. The student can say, they'll see the picture with the cues and then go and circle what letters they're seeing. You can do that too with upper and lowercase. If you don't have something that has tools, you could use colored blocks, put the letters in the colored blocks and say what says W, and they'd say W, that's the blue square. What says X, that's the red square. So you could use colors in that way to try to get them to engage with that. Another thing I've done is just with vowels, I might hold up a capital letter and have them circle the lowercase. They've got to find the lowercase. This is for young students. One of the questions we got was, how much time do you spend with kindergarten, first grade, second grade? I can tell you I'm doing 30-minute lessons, or actually more like 20, 25-minute lessons with kindergarten and first graders. And then from second grade on, my lessons are 45 minutes. What are you?
I actually just had an hour lesson with a kindergartner. I had to keep it rocking the whole time, but he did an amazing job actually. And some of the things that we're going to show you was what I did with him.
So let me show you these, a way to kick it up a notch if you're reviewing sounds and symbols, exit effects. So this is a really easy thing to do, but you can just make the letter disappear off the page. See how the G just fell off? The A bounces away. This is a really easy thing to do with PowerPoint or Google Slides. Google Slides will have it too. You're just going to go up to your animations tab and you'll notice that there's something called exit effects. And then this way you will get to pick how your letter or word bounces out of the picture. Just something to kind of be interesting for the students to see.
And there's some really cool ones. Like there's legitimately take a few seconds to do this because the kids love to see how they just fly onto the screen and they can't wait for the next one. Because the hardest thing with this whole process that we've learned is keeping their attention, keeping it interesting. And little stuff like this, I've become like a PowerPoint guru, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would say.
And so that really helps engage them and keeps them interested because it's hard to look at a screen for an hour, but it can be done, you know?
Yeah, it can, yeah, we've had to get very creative. All right, this one, so Keith and I both do a lot of automaticity building with our students, and we have a game where we would normally use flashcards and just kind of slowly lower the flashcard with the word. and the student would have to sound it out. Keith calls it the horizon game, before the word dips below the table, which is the horizon.
They love it.
How do we recreate that online, especially if the word is kind of held back a bit and they can't maybe see it that well? So this exit effect is called credits. The one thing you have to do, I make this a game, but I'll say to my students, close your eyes, and then when I press the next button, it disappears, but you're going to see what happens, hopefully. Okay, yes. It's going to scroll down the page, just like that game we were mentioning to you. And it goes pretty slowly. With my kindergarten, first graders, I have some second graders that really struggle with dyslexia, rapid naming deficit. I mean, it's just hard for them to gain some automaticity. One way to kick it up a notch and make it more challenging, if you think one word is too slow, do the credits with more than one word, maybe up to 3 words.
And can't you change the amount of time that it takes to go down?
I haven't been able. Oh,
I think you can. I think you can do
I
that.
didn't
And
do
that
it.
would probably everybody where you want to go over to the YouTube videos, and they'll show you how to do it. One thing I do not like, and Marianne can attest to this, is I don't like tons of prep time. There's so much going on trying to teach our own kids.
yes.
And trying to learn this whole new craft in these times. The things that we're going to show you today, if you just take a couple minutes, you'll have lesson plans for months. But they do take a couple minutes in the beginning just to get used to them. But
Yes, I definitely struggled in the one of the struggles that I had in the beginning as well was just navigating different tools. It wasn't efficient for me to do PowerPoint and go to here and then do, so I started kind of condensing things. In terms of, I'll go to the next slide, but in terms of organization, what I typically do is take one PowerPoint and Google Slides. It's kind of the same thing. It's just a different platform, but I'll have one presentation for the week. So in my student folders, it'll say week of 6/15, and we'll have the students, the plans for the week in there. And I usually design the plan for the next day based on what they did in the session that I was with them. There are other phonics apps out there. If you're somebody that wants to use apps, this one's available on Apple and Android. It's called OG Card Deck app. There's it'll give you the letter name, sound, keyword, video. Now, let me just show you our 2 favorite apps, though. These ones I probably use more than any other app. There's a couple of other ones that I like, but these 2 I use the most. This is the Lively Letters app. We'll give you a quick look, and the Sound Literacy app. So I have this little quick video to play. We may not watch.
So what I just want to review sounds with the students, flash letters, flash their sounds. This app is really great. What you can do is you can actually hear what the sound says by touching the ear. Of course, I'm doing this on my iPad. You can hit the book, which is going to tell them the story that goes with that letter sound. You can hit the music icon, and that will play the song. You can click on the picture of the mouth, which is pretty cool. It will actually show you what the mouth is doing and what your lips are doing oral kinesthetically, which is pretty nice. And also you can hit the pen or the pencil, and that allows me to go in and emphasize that you're putting the lips together when you make that sound. So what's pretty cool about that is I can just pop through the letters and they can say their sounds. There's the t sound, there's the d sound. I can emphasize the drum by drawing on it or playing the song or whatever you want to do, really. So it's just a quick way to flash letter sounds.
So Keith demonstrated that with Lively Letters, but that is available with all plain letters too. So you don't really have to be using that particular program to enjoy the app. Let me go back to actually, Keith, your talk here about how you use it for making words.
So what I just want to review.
Oh, no.
So what I just want to review.
All right, I'll show you a couple other tricks. One of them is something I've done. I'm bringing this out because I have some students that confuse B and D, and one mnemonic that is used, and I've had good luck with, is getting the student to either look for what they see first. Do they see a line first for a bat, or do they see a circle first for the drum? And this came from some of the work we've done with Lively Letters, and this is a strategy they have, and I've had great success with it. So I'll either have the student discriminating between a bat or a drum. I normally would have that be something that the student would do. So I would give them a BD challenge, and I'd say, you're going to do challenge number 1, line 1. And I would have the student take their tool, show me they see the line first by drawing a line. Show me they see the drum first by coloring the drum. So they'd do b, d, b. When they don't have tools to use, if it's Google Meets, I just say to them, if you see the line first, I want you to pull your fingers down. So b. If you see the drum first, d, b, d. So they have some kind of a motor movement. One of the big reasons I picked this example was because normally I would have the student graph their results of this challenge. I kind of make a big deal of it. And this young man, I just basically tried to recreate graphs that I was using with Google Slides or PowerPoint. But this is a graph that shows this student in their B versus D battle. This is Fred, one of my students, working so hard. He is so motivated by graphs and charts, and he's a competitive little guy. And I asked him today if I could get his permission to show this graph, and he was very, very proud. We do the reverse drill for spelling. I'll dictate B's and D's, and we'll talk about the formation. Folks had asked about letter formation. I find that that's a tricky area to try to, but when I'm doing, I actually didn't mention, but when we're doing like that letter sound drill, I'll have them write the letter in their hand on the table. Some of them have a sand tray available. You know, I'll just try to use whatever I can, but finger on the hand is fine as well. These are some automaticity drills that I'll do with my students. Again, they can maybe read accurately, but they don't have a lot of automaticity. I'll put these drills in place for them. And these were things that I traditionally had them graph themselves or color themselves. And now I just kind of recreated that into a graph. So we'll use something like this for the student to set a goal. So I read 21 sounds. I'm in the blue zone. Next week, I want to try to get into the green zone and then the yellow zone. This little document here is just sort of a motivator for them. All right, couple apps that I'll go through quickly, definitely worth checking out. These ones here, ABC Magic Phonics 3. The student is hearing the letter sound and they have to tap the correct letter. So these are definitely worth checking out. All of them are free. They have the ability to upgrade them. I have not had to upgrade them, but these are some great phonics apps. Again, ABC Magic Phonics, and it will tell you what it offers: picture matching, in a row, find the picture. So lots of different choices here. So which set is a match? Does go with dog or go with sun? They just move this little icon here over to the correct answer. Again, if you're a classroom teacher, these are great things to reference to parents. This one here, I like. The student has to capture all the pictures at the top and move them into the hot air balloon. So if they're able to take over my control, which I can do that in some cases, other cases I can't do that. I just have them yell to me what it is: zipper, zucchini, and I'll move it in. So we'll work together sort of as a team. Android apps, again, I couldn't field test them, but I looked at these ones and I liked them better than some of the other ones I saw. So if you're an Android user, definitely check these ones out. All right, other ideas for phonics patterns. We talked about letter tiles, an ability to move the letter tiles. You obviously can't be in PowerPoint. Keith's doing a lot of lively letters with his students, so he will make a word. If this says top, what does this say? And the student will have to read the word. I'm doing a lot of those as well. So you can do that with consonants if they're used to. The other thing I was thinking of is some of my students are used to seeing consonants in a certain way or vowels in a certain way. We can recreate that. We both of us do a lot of this chaining, and I'll go back to the app for that. Keith will show you this, how you can do that chaining. So chaining would be one change at a time. If this says pin, make it say pit. If this says pit, make it say pat. That would be when the student is making the changes, but you can make the changes as teachers.
Okay, so
and
now
let
we're
the
going to do some
students read it.
tracking. I've loaded up the letters that I want to work on. Maybe that was in their curriculum that particular week or my curriculum. And I pull up those letters and I start tracking activities. So we'll start typically with real words, especially with the younger kids, and I'll throw in nonsense words, or we call them alien words on other occasions. But really for the younger ones, I try to do a little bit more real words in the beginning. So we'll build the word slip. Okay, so we pull down the letters. Again, I'm doing this on my iPad, obviously not on my computer screen. So if that says slip, let's make it say, what does this say? So then I make one change. I pull down the A. What I really love about this app is that if you see here with the pencil icon, you can click that, and I can use that on my iPad to just kind of help them realize that they're blending these sounds into one unit, so that they're not going s-ol, but they're doing a soul, slap. It's just a nice little feature. Sometimes when I'm doing King Ed, if there was an E here, which I can draw in, which is pretty cool, I can just use an arrow and it can jump over. And sometimes I just use that little arrow without even saying anything to the student, and they can visually see that, which is, again, pretty powerful.
I'm going to move forward, but there's one other piece that the kids really like, and it's this idea that they can click if it's a human word or a Martian word or an alien, whatever word you want to use for out of space, but human or alien. And we usually ask the kids, who do you think is going to win this challenge today? For older students, I've got a lot of I've had this app for many years. You do have to pay for this. I haven't seen it on Android. It is on Apple. It's called Sound Literacy, probably one of the best tile boards, digital tile boards for older students. So again, this would be for reading only activities, because I can't get the students to manipulate it outside of using Google Slides or Jamboard or something where both of us can be on it at the same time. So this would be an activity for them to do some reading. I just wanted to show you all the different types of they have the alphabet, consonant teams, vowel teams, endings, rhymes, prefixes, suffixes. I mean, this is really comprehensive, but I do a ton of word building with elementary all the way up through middle school. The reallyGreatReading.com, the Really Great Reading is offering access to this tile board during COVID, and it's fantastic as well. So these are great tools to use. Other low-tech options, as Keith mentioned, just being able to use on a PowerPoint, use a tool to kind of highlight, and I'll let Keith talk about this. Keith likes to use words that make kids laugh.
Yeah, so we're working on, R controlled words, ER, IR, UR, OR, AR. So I try to mix it up a little bit and put in fresh words. There's one right there. So they really love that, and the word burp and stuff like that. So I try to, get them to read these words, which probably isn't very PC, I guess, but
It's
whatever,
fun.
it's fine.
They don't care.
But they love it, and I put these words in little stories, so they're part of the story, and I'll show you that in a few minutes here. But it just makes it fun.
Dice games that I used to play in person with students, I do them still. So I'll pull this picture up of this roll and read. I've seen a lot of people take these types of things from Teachers Pay Teachers. The student can have their own dice at their house if they have it, or use your own here, roll it. And the object is, they roll a 1, they have to read through the whole line, and they're trying to get all of the numbers, to be the first one to get all of the numbers completed. A lot of people do graphing. I know Wilson Reading does a lot of charting of words. So this is just an example. I bring that online too. So anything that I've charted in person with students, I'm charting them online and finding a way to kind of replicate that. It is very motivating for students. Okay, I have to talk about wordwall.com. This is going to, if you haven't seen this, sorry, wordwall.net. Wordwall.net. If you haven't seen this, you can make a free account and make up to 5 games. This was one of the few things I indulged in. This is this was a game changer for me. So I'm able to create all kinds of games that are very specific to my students' skills on wordwall.net. Here I'm doing a word sort. with beginning and ending consonant blends. The student, if they can take control of the screen and move the words. If they can't take control of the screen, I just have them tell me what to do. And I make it a game by seeing if they can, we set a goal for time. How long do you think this will take? And see if they can change it. The other thing I do here with this game is I can make this kind of wheel, and I hit spin it, and it spins the wheel, the word comes up. Initially, I didn't know what I was doing, so I just had words on it, and the kids were thinking, you know, how is this fun? How is this fun? It wasn't. So I got a little creative. So this is a game I used to play with popsicle sticks with the students. Keith's played this game as well. We call it the bumblebee game. If they pick a stick with the bumblebee, they've been stung, and all the sticks they have to go back. So similar concept here. The kids accumulate points by reading the words. If they get the bumblebee, if they land on the bumblebee, they've been stung, and they have to forfeit their points. If they get this is off right here, bug spray. If they get the bug spray, it's like an immunity stick. So lots of fun games on here. It's easy to put pictures on. I use some of my students are using the LIPS program. If you're somebody that's been using that, I have the LIPS pictures on here. You can see I have bonus points, lose all your points, take an extra turn. Boom means you lost your points. So lots of different games that I've played. And what I like best about it is I've been able to have my students like customize it to them. Couple other things. This is for some of my students that struggle with spelling. So I'll have the word spelled two ways. This was a student working on TCH versus just CH. And they did have an ability to, they were using Zoom. They could use their annotation tools. They could circle. So I said to them, circle the correct spelling of the CH sound, the ch sound, and X out the ones that aren't spelled correctly. So this was a great activity. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of this. You know, again, circle the words that are spelled correctly, put an X through the words that aren't. So I have a contrast. I always have two words that are the same, one spelled correctly, one spelled incorrectly. And we'll talk about the spelling rule. A couple of more apps that we have that have like a movable alphabet. This one I like. It gives you the letters. The student has to sequence them correctly. So this is ABC Spelling Magic 1. ABC Spelling Magic 1. So they see pot. You may have to tell them what the picture is. They can tap the picture and it will say it. And then they're moving the letters in the correct order. This one I like though. Keith likes this as well. So the student sees the letters and sounds out the word. This is on the iPad, an Apple app. So I've had my kindergarten and first grade students sound out the word, and then I tell them that this is magic. And if they clap, the picture will be activated. It's just my finger activating the picture, but they say fix, fix. They clap, and then it comes up and it will say fix, and they get a point for that. So they like thinking they can activate it. In a similar way, just even doing letter sound drills, will say stand up. If you see a vowel, stand up. If you're seeing a consonant, sit down. But some of this series of apps I've just used over and over and over again. Some of them even have something like silent E, where it has the silent E. Some of them have, you read the word pin, you add the silent E, and then the picture will change and show them pine. I loved this for some of my second and third graders. So I've got a lot of mileage out of it. I don't want to spend too much time on sight words. You know, one big message we have about sight words is that sort of, you know, memorizing one word at a time. It just has a limited shelf life. So something that Keith and I do quite a bit is take something like a Fry list or a Dolch list, whatever lists your schools are using or you use personally, and I just reorganize those words by their phonics pattern. And so when I teach CVC words, I'll go over, these are the high frequency words, I'll make sure I go over. Keith, you know, the same type of thing. So we get a lot of mileage out of this, but there are some, you know, there are some sight word apps that you can check out. Sight Word Ninja is one that I like. The problem that I have with these sight word apps, so maybe this would work better for Keith's students that are more tier 2. For my students, I need to control for what kind of words they're seeing. All right, so we'll talk about text online, and Keith has some stuff to show you, but Epic Books is for Apple and Android. It is an app. I can't remember if I paid for it or not. A lot of schools have subscriptions to these.
Yeah.
But what I like about it is that it does the read aloud, but it highlights each word as it's being read. So it's not just sitting and staring, reading. It'll show you what word it's on. And I liked that feature. I've got a lot of mileage out of my Reading A to Z account. There's a little trick I wanted to show you, but they have a foundational skills section, and then they have uncontrolled. So they have controlled and uncontrolled text. What I like here is that I can click on the elements that I want. It brings up those types of passages. So here I did something with consonant blends. And then what I didn't notice before, because I used it in a very different way, but they have this section called projectable. Click on projectable. Now my students see the book full screen, and I have access. And they could have, I guess it depends on what platform you're using, but I have access to these annotation tools. I would say the best thing about these annotation tools, so you can see here I underlined words with consonant blends. The best thing about the annotation tools is that it stays with the stories, meaning that if I log out on Tuesday and I log in on Wednesday, the same annotation tools will be in there. And we'll give you some ideas about older students as well. Yeah.
So let's go to, so what another thing I've done, I had mentioned that I don't like to spend a lot of time prepping. I like to use what's out there and maximize it. So, but one thing I do is I do create stories, and I like to put the kids' names in it. And I'll do like one story for the week, and I'll be working on, more controlled text. So we're working on a certain pattern or whatever. But there's a couple things that I learned in PowerPoint that are just very effective when you're doing this online learning. I can honestly say that I've almost been able to duplicate exactly what I do in the classroom, which if you had asked me a week before, I'd be like, there's no way I can come anywhere close to what these kids need unless I'm right in front of them. And I can tell you that we actually had some kids on my caseload that actually grew and probably wouldn't even be in my group anymore. And I really believe it's because we've learned to maximize the tools that we have. So here's one of them. I create these stories. Marianne was talking about pictures. If you had the word picture like cotton, cotton, like, well, some people might've been saying, well, where do I get those pictures? This is great if you don't know it. Just go into your toolbar, like you're going to do a search, and just put the word in donut. If you put green donut, they'll come up with a picture with a green donut, and you just drag that picture right into your PowerPoint or into any of those slides. So it's not hard to find these pictures. You just go into Google, like you're going to search or put in, whatever, and just put in the word of what a picture you want, and it will actually come up with a whole string of pictures that you could slide right in. So this was a walk in the desert. I grabbed this picture. So we'll go to the next slide right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I do is the beginning of the passage that I make for them, there's going to be words in there that don't follow the patterns. Okay. So I put those words, even though there's quite a few of them here, I put these words and we go through them all so that they're familiar with them, so that when you go to the next page and the story begins that I created, and I literally do it in like 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and then we use it for the whole week. This kind of gives them a heads up about words that don't play fair. But it's pretty cool in that I learned if you right click, okay, I'd really pay attention to this. This was pretty cool. And you go down to pointer options, there's a couple things you can do. You can have a laser pointer, which is cool, and they love this. And I would make with the first graders these really, cool sounds, and they would be following it. So if you're working on a pattern, I could highlight that. Or if this was a list of words that were like CVC words, I could quickly move this along and say, try to catch the dot. And that would actually work on fluency, much like that Horizon game that I do, that helps them to be able to do it automatically, because that's where we want our kids to be at. They have to be automatic. So this is a really powerful tool to do that. The other thing that you can do, which is nice, is you can put it on a pen. So I have a pen right now. So let's just say I'm working on, let's see, an R control, like we all have just learned this one. I can kind of highlight that. Or let's say, of course, there's not the word I need here, but let's just say there was the word bake up here. I'm writing this very poorly, but I can easily take this and just go like this and draw a line over to it. You guys know where I'm going with this. Because if I just tell them what it is, you're not really helping them. You're just giving them the answer. But this quick visual through the computer screen really helped a lot of those kids look for the, you know, the NE rule. So then when we go to the next, so then you want to get out of that. I'm not in show. How do I go to the next
slide?
Yeah, next slide. So here's the actual story that I wrote for them. I don't put a lot of pictures in there because I want them to work more on reading, but this is where I could use my laser real quick. Oh boy, sorry. I'm super good at this.
Okay.
Anyway, this is one of those things where I use the laser. You
Hold on a
can
second.
really track and move the students along, and they really try to keep up with it. Or if there's a little cue that I want to use for like a long E word, I can use the pen and highlight certain things as we're moving along. And I gotta tell you, it really helps keep their attention.
Keith showed me the laser pointer and I had not used it, but I had not used it initially. It was just one more thing for me to try to figure out. But since then, I have become very skilled at using the laser.
I'm hooked on it. I really
am. All right, control text. So Keith was showing. I mean, he said he works with tier 2, so he has more patterns, I guess, on a page. So the students I'm working with, my text is very controlled for certain phonics patterns. Only what I've taught them is what they're seeing. But there are some great control text online. Spire, Wilson, if you go to these bit.ly links, you'll find them. They're hard to find on your own, so I put the bit.ly links in there. Flyleaf Publishing has some controlled text. It's not as controlled as these, but it's semi-controlled. Wanted to show you other things with that reading A to Z. For student, you know, you're working, let's say, on comprehension, vocabulary, in a chapter book, you still have those. This is reading A to Z's uncontrolled text, but you still have access to lots of different annotation tools. And remember, it stays with it. I had mentioned that I use Jamboard, which is a Google Chrome extension, to put letter tiles on, but I'll also use this aspect of it, which I love, and that is Jamboard will have sticky notes. I can assign my students a sticky note color. I might say, Devin, I want you to be the purple sticky note. And then I'll say, here's the question on the Jamboard. I want you guys to read X and put your answers in on the Jamboard on your sticky note. So how did Henry's perception change? And they can use their sticky note to do that. So it kind of just gets a little bit more interaction going. A lot of people are using News, ELA. They have an adjustable Lexile level, a quiz, a writing prompt, different aspects that you can use. I more or less like the ability to be able to highlight different parts of the text with students. We won't get into assistive technology, but some of the Google Chrome extensions that you would traditionally use for assistive technology, let's say in the school, are great to use online with students. So right in my online work with a student, I might pull something up and have them maybe do some highlighting. And you know that on Reading Write Goal, this is an awesome tool. It will gather all the pink highlights or all the blue highlights, but it has a lot of nice features. Definitely something worth checking out for sure. Quick thing on vocabulary. I know we've got to wrap up in about 3 minutes, so that's actually kind of my cue. We know that with vocabulary, teaching in a multi-pronged approach is best. So you'll see this in the handouts. But one thing I do with my students, and I just have to shout out to Jane Pollard, a great reading specialist that does this, but she'll work with students on these vocabulary words and kind of ask them to make some inferences about what they're going to be reading about. I used to do sort of a chart where the students would give me a sense of what are, how well do they know the words we're going to work on. This slide here will give you an example of that. So there's a code that I'm using at the bottom, students' names over here, words here. People were asking online, how do I get my middle school students engaged in some of this? That's one way that I was doing. If you were using Google Slides, you could do this and students could go in and type in their knowledge of a word before you start working on it. Even things like the Frere model, things I used to do online or things that I'll do, I've kind of found a way to adapt them. here to, you know, tell me how, if you agree or disagree. Altercations is the vocab word. Sometimes altercations are necessary. So this is on Jamboard. I'll say to them, use your sticky note color, put your name on it, show me whether you agree or disagree. Then the students have to justify their answer, which would demonstrate their knowledge of that vocab term. Check out this app for little ones. The student can organize the words into a correct sentence. This one is called sentence building. That's it. Nothing fancy here. No. But I do want to show people this before I turn it back over to Jennifer. So to demonstrate syntactic flexibility, this is a helpful thing for students, but just like you were manipulating letters, I have students manipulate phrases. So show me how you could make a sentence here. My mom and dad had lunch in the sub shop. That might be the first sentence. Okay, show me another way you can make the sentence. At the sub shop, my mom and dad, oh, that somehow that animation went way wrong, but you get the idea. Syntactic flexibility, you can do that with different sentences or something like this. You'll see this in the PowerPoint. Definitely though, let's have folks reach out to us if
that was fast.
Yeah, well, we were trying to cover a lot, give you a lot of stuff. So I'll have Jennifer come back on. Here's my email address. Certainly reach out to me. I think Denise put out a SurveyMonkey link. You can just give us your email. We'll send you some of the freebies. Phew.
That was a marathon.
That was a marathon.
Yeah, but it was so excellent. Thank you so much, Marianne and Keith, for what a great presentation and a lot of practical information. And just as Marianne was saying, I wanted to let you know that the links to the freebies that they were talking about are going to be in IDA's next eBlast, and we will be putting them all on our social media as well. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. And wanted to let you know that today's presentation, we had a few technical difficulties. Zoom had a little update, which those of you who've been teaching online know what that can do last minute. But today's presentation is going to be available to watch on our YouTube channel by tomorrow. Today we just had to do the Facebook live stream because of the issues, but we'll be back to normal. Get it up for tomorrow, and then everything should hopefully be back to normal for our webinars on June 29th and August 10th. So in case you joined us late, I just wanted to remind all of you about IDA's COVID-19 Relief Fund. Donate now to support students in need. And we really hope to have you join us again on the 29th and August 10th for the two-part series on resilience in challenging times. Thanks again, Marianne and Keith, and everybody. Have a great afternoon.
All right, take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.